How's it going, team? Welcome back to another episode of the Average Jacks podcast. Today is something a little different. I didn't want to do a book club because I did one of them last week. Just got some guests lined up, waiting for them to come on. So I thought I'd do something more sort of personal to me and just explain how I've found doing the podcast. I mean, I think this will be episode 28 when it comes out. Well over 6 months that I've been doing it now. And, not revolutionising the game or anything like that, but I always think it's interesting for people to get an insight and share their insight on a journey they've embarked on and how they've found that. So hopefully, as well as providing some interest for you and people that are regular listeners, and for people who are starting out and stumble across this podcast, this video, and hopefully give some insight into, the journey and what to expect, especially from, this could be a very personal experience for me and one that is unique, but you never know. I always feel like it's good to be open and share, so there's no real structure to this, so I'm just going to freeball it and sort of get what's off my chest, which sounds more dramatic than it is. I am full of it. Shock horror. So sorry for the deep, dulcet tones. So yeah, with the podcast, it's strange, because it's so enjoyable. It's something that I love doing. I don't mind that I don't make any money from it. I don't mind the time, the effort, and the resource. You could say it's a passion without going too deep or philosophical or whatever into it, but it definitely is my passion. And even doing these ones when I'm just talking to you and it's myself, I enjoy these. I find it very cathartic. I find an experience that I surprise myself sometimes how open I'm willing to be in these situations. So for me, that it's become a very good source of reflection and mindfulness, especially when I'm doing these solo ones where I can just release what's in my mind. So I didn't anticipate that when I started the podcast. I did not anticipate it being something that would contribute positively to like my well-being and my mental health, but it has. I mean, on the counter of that, it is fucking frustrating. Like, it is so frustrating, but I don't mind it. And why it's frustrating, I'll get into some of them reasons, is you're obviously I'm so passionate about this and making it something and growing it and wanting to provide something for people. Like, money is nice, finances, and, making something that will financially cover me and bring an income in, blah, 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 that, dream, end goal. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and say I wish that wasn't happening. But ultimately, it's not. And at the end of the day, that isn't the be all and end all, or I would have stopped probably 10 episodes ago. And why it's frustrating is because I'm super passionate, I'm super keen, and I want this to do well. And I just want to keep getting it out, and I want to keep speaking to people I don't know, I want to learn. And the hardest thing is getting guests, is especially when you're an embryonic podcast like mine, and you're very, very much in your infancy, and you don't really have any lure or any sway, or you can't pay people. So many times people just rather you, or they start talking to you and then they sort of ask, oh, well, how many followers have you got, how many this have you got, how many that have you got, and then they're just not interested. And I can completely appreciate that. They're doing something for free, I'm doing something for free, and they don't see a lot of reward in that effort. And for my own personal journey, I need to be better at not getting as frustrated when people don't want to come on the podcast. So I think if you was starting out on a podcast, you've just got to get used to rejection. Rejection's such a big thing. You're going to get a lot more no's and a lot more left on reds than you are yeses. But when you do get them yeses, it is unbelievably gratifying. And when you have these conversations with people, especially in the format in which I do, and people become very open, they become very transparent with their journey and their story, and people have said they've shared things on the podcast that they've never shared before, and I'm so honoured that that people do that. So yeah, it's frustrating, but again, on the flip side of that, the positive is that when it does work and it does come off and you get these people on and you speak to them, wow, like it's such a buzz. And there's been times I've come off the podcast and felt emotional of like how in depth and connected you can feel to someone just by having one of these conversations. The conversations you have with someone on a podcast isn't like your run of the mill everyday conversation. It's something that it's very focused. You're transfixed on each other. You're completely in it. There's no distractions, especially in person. The ones that I've done online are, you still get that, but it is slightly different. And yeah, I just can't really put it into words how good it is to have a great conversation with someone that you've never met before and to come off it and feel like you've built a relationship with someone is just amazing. And then another real positive and one of the things that keeps you going is the feedback that you get. People telling you, "I listen to this episode, I listen to that episode," and that is, you could say it's egotistical. It is stroking my ego when people say, "Oh, that was really good. This was that. This was this," but you are doing it to be spread, to be shared, to be engaged with. So I think like you've just got to ride that wave and take it, because even now, and I'm not nowhere near big, nowhere near. I think I've got like 80 Spotify subscribers and late 60s YouTube. But the more you put content out, the more people do watch, and like it is funny when you start getting people giving you shit online and stuff like that. That's obviously I'm not getting it a lot. There's been a few incidences, but to be in that situation if you've never had it before is quite strange, because you're like, what's this all about? Why do people what vibe onto this person to make them say my video's shit, or the way I talk is shit, and really petty things? And I think you just got to rise over it. Just got to I just give people shit back a lot of the time, unless they're willing to engage in a conversation, which I have done. Like there was one on my YouTube videos where me and this person just got into a conversation about a thought that they had against the idea of the video. They sort of countered the idea that I had, and then I just asked were they willing to have a discussion about it, and then we did, and that was really good. That was like a very healthy way of doing it, and a way that I hadn't really experienced before online. So yeah, positives: talking to people, meeting people, learning. I think if you're someone who's interested in learning and want to better themselves, I don't think there's a better platform than podcasting. I think that's why I love podcasts so much and wanted to do my own. Just because when you listen to a podcast, you're listening to just a conversation, and it feels a much less academic or focused way of learning, like you would reading a book or going to a talk or a lecture. You're just listening to a conversation, and I think people like the fact that it feels like you're gigging in, and it feels like you're being nosy into a conversation, because people share things that you'd be like, God, I didn't know that. So, but yeah, the negatives are there is few, and I think the negatives that come with doing a podcast are I think they're a mirror of yourself. For me, definitely, it's not being insecure, which is something that I've still feel posting episodes, still feel, why the fuck am I doing this? Who am I to do this? Having that imposter syndrome, being persistent, being resilient, continuing, but not continuing in a way that isn't working, addressing what you're doing. Efficiency, it's so time consuming. Finding things, so like I use Riverside, I use Opus Clip, and that just helps me churn things out, because I've got a full-time job on the side of this. I've got a life, fiance, friends, hobbies, things that I want to do. But I also want to give this its fair chance and fair crack. And being efficient and outsourcing these things has been a massive help for me. But then again, it comes back to not biting off more than you can chew. And it's absolutely insane to see, and fair fucking play to people, because I wish I was in their position. Again, maybe me not being as jealous or envious as other people's situations, because as this expression goes, comparison is the thief of joy. But you see so many people with these mad fucking setups, mad studios, like 2 episodes in, and I cannot compare myself to them people, because that will just make me feel obsolete, will make me feel minuscule, and will probably make me stop. I can't afford to do that. I don't have I'm doing it in my kitchen right now, and I've been fortunate to do it in places and find spaces, but it's just got to take its time. It's just got to start small and build up, and I think that is the message that I would give to anyone doing with a podcast. Get a good mic, research it, because I fucked up. I bought a USB mic, should have bought an XLR mic. Jump into it, but do your research as well, because I just was like, if I don't do it now, I'm never going to do it. Now I've like got different sets of mics and stuff like that, which is fine because I know I will use them. The next one's a camera, and then once I've got these things, a good camera, a good mic, I can then start thinking about setups. And the reality of it is, people aren't going to be flooding to it. People aren't going to be flocking to it. Obviously, you have your people, your ride or dies. You guys that listen and watch. I can't tell you how much I appreciate the support, and even how little some of the gestures may seem of just sharing something or liking something or just subscribing is massive for like the growth and the engagement. So thank you very much for that. And, just keep chipping away. I appreciate it massively. But if you want to start a podcast, do not go and spend £400 on a studio. Do not go and do the real extravagant stuff, because you're not going to be fucking Modern Wisdom. You're not going to be, Joe Rogan, High Performance Podcast. You're not going to be these people 10 episodes in. Some of these people that do that have platforms that they've come off and gone straight into podcasting, and then they can use this to build that. But if you're just like me, an everyday person, an average Jack, pardon the pun, like, the likelihood is you're not going to have that. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't. That doesn't mean if you want to enjoy doing a podcast that you shouldn't feel like you have to have a studio and a producer. I mean, it helps. I mean, I'd fucking love that. But I'm very aware now, during this journey, that it's just about being consistent, turning up, getting episodes out, and dependent on how they look. I mean, ideally, I'd love to have guests on every week, but guests are like buzzes, mate. Like, once you get one, you get four, but you can be waiting ages for them. I've not had a guest, I'll be honest, I've not had a guest confirm a date now for like, must be coming up to 3 weeks. I've had people say yeah, and that's sweet. That's like, I know it's coming, but finding people who just have free time to do an hour and a half or 2 hour chat is rare. So come into it with the expectation that it's going to be difficult. People aren't always going to want to speak to you, and when people do want to speak to you, schedules collide, schedules conflict. But to summarise this very short episode and how I found doing the podcast is, I found it brilliant. I found it more than I ever imagined it could be, and it's not even giving me, what it could give me eventually. And I truly, truly believe that I can grow this to something that will be decent, will be noticeable. I have the confidence in myself, and I'm putting it out there. I'm saying this, and fucking people can screenshot this and take the piss, and it's there as evidence. But this, I feel, is something that will grow and have the foundations to be something special. So, yeah, I found my passion, I think, and I think it's been something I've been looking for a long time. But that doesn't mean I don't get disheartened, and that doesn't mean I don't struggle, and that doesn't mean that sometimes I'm thinking about fucking throwing it all to one side and being like, ugh. But when you know, and this feeling is something that I've probably been looking for in different aspects and avenues for a long time. So for me, I'm going to be biased. I think it's brilliant. I think it's excellent. I think everyone should try it. I think everyone should try this idea of this very alien idea. Looking at this microphone now seems so alien and bizarre, but I've done it like 28 times, and maybe next year I'll have done it 150 times, and then in 10 years I'll have done it 1,000 times. You forget this eventually. Initially, your first 5 episodes, you just panic about it. You just panic about it. It's you don't want to be too close, you don't want to be too far, you don't want to be doing all that sort of shit. But then you realise that anything you're doing in this is picking up is just you. And obviously there's exceptions to that, but it's just an extension to capture what you are saying and what you are trying to portray. If you're new, if you're starting, just do it. Be persistent. Get yourself a good mic. Your iPhone, which is what I film most of my stuff on, is a good enough camera. You don't need to flake out on, £1,000 worth. But I think later on down the line, I think the average life expectancy, John Cunningham, shout out to you. I think John was telling me that most podcasts don't make it past episode 3. So I think if you're doing 10 times that, like I am, and you're near the 30 mark episode, it is to start looking to upgrade and do things like that. I feel. Could be wrong. Could come back next year and tell you something else. But yeah, be persistent. Speak to people. Rejection will be there every day. Just got to ignore it, get over it, and keep finding people. And just speak to people you want to speak to. Don't fucking matter the following, who they are. Well, it does matter who they are, to scratch that. But the following and stuff is redundant. If you just want to have a conversation with someone that you find interesting, just ask them. Just ask them. And you could have some of the best chats you've ever had. And that's what's happened with me. So yeah, I love it. It's difficult. It's challenging. It's hard. But I didn't charge my light. So if you stuck around this long and just wonder why it's gone dark, because my light wasn't charged. Another thing. But, sorry. Yeah, it's a labour of love. And I think I'm going to leave it there. So yeah, thank you again, as always, for your support. Make sure you're subscribing, make sure you're following, share the content, like it. Check me out on social media, Average Chats Podcast. Check out the website, www.jackmckeon.co.uk. Check out the sponsor, the boyos, Viribus Strength. Head over to Viribus Strength, www.viribusstrength.co.uk. Use the code AverageJack at checkout. Get yourself a tasty 20% off. Helps them, helps you, helps me. And yeah, to the struggle, I suppose. And I'll see you for the next one. Hopefully some guests, maybe another book club, maybe me just chatting absolute macca. But look after yourself, take it easy, and I appreciate everyone who sits and listens, the ones who find it bad and the ones who find it good. Thank you for sticking around. Peace.